You just know an upcoming game is going to do great when its lead writer and creative director are both suddenly fired months before release. Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include the thoughts of one of the original Diablo 2 devs on the alleged Diablo 2 remaster, some troubling signs for upcoming game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, some impressive Diablo 3 community sleuthing, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the video description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. And a quick note before we jump in that we have a merch shop on Teespring. We now sell masks, we got t-shirts, we got caps. Feel free to check that out. In our first story, upcoming action-adventure game Deathloop has been delayed to the second quarter of 2021. This game, being developed by Arcane Studios, the developers of Dishonored, sees you take on the role of an assassin stuck in a time loop. And it's a game whose premise I found very interesting. In other news, we got the launch trailer of Hades, a roguelike dungeon crawler from the creators of Bastion and Transistor. This fall, it'll be leaving early access on PC, and it'll be also launching on Nintendo Switch. And speaking of Nintendo Switch, in other news for Torchlight 3, we got the announcement that the game will be coming to Nintendo Switch. And I believe it'll actually play very well on the platform. Diablo 3 played surprisingly well on Switch, Torchlight 2 recently launched on Switch, so I'm sure Torchlight 3 will be a good fit for the platform as well. On to some Baldur's Gate 3 news. We finally have a date for when Baldur's Gate 3 will enter early access. Assuming no further delays, it should happen on September 30th, launching onto Steam and Google Stadia. How much content will be in the early access? A 25-hour-long Act 1. I personally have mixed feelings about playing story-based games in early access, simply because it kinda spoils the story. But thankfully it is only the first act. In other news, Amazon announced this week that it has reached an exclusive publishing agreement for North America and Europe with Korean developer Smilegate RPG. They will collaborate to publish a game releasing next year, with specific details to be revealed at a later date. And a lot of people are speculating that this might pertain to Lost Ark. Lost Ark is an MMORPG that had a huge amount of hype behind it years ago. It was being touted as a Diablo 4 killer long before Diablo 4 was even revealed. It released in South Korea, where it was met with a good amount of success, but it's been years now and people in the Western world have continued to wait for a Western release. So far, people in North and South America and Europe have only been able to play by going through VPNs and playing the Korean version of the game, trying to figure out the language barriers. It's not the best experience, and it's of questionable legality. Well, not legality, but breaking the terms of service of the game. But I turn the question to you folks. Is this a title that you're still interested in, or is it too little too late? Has the hype train left the station long ago, run out of gas, and you just not care about the game anymore? In other news, Microsoft Flight Simulator released this week, and it's been getting amazing critic reviews. Currently sitting at a critic rating on Metacritic of 93 out of 100, the game has received tremendous praise. Its user rating, however, sits at a 6.9 out of 10. And pouring through the reviews, it does appear as though that most of the complaints revolve around performance issues and bugs. Now, this tends to fall in the realm of your mileage may vary, where some people don't experience the bad stuff and others do. So I turn the question to you folks, those of you who have been playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, what are your thoughts? In other news, after 8.5 years, Factorio has finally launched its release version. The popular construction and management simulation game has finally left early access, and it is one of the best reviewed games on Steam in Steam history. And that's during the entirety of its time in early access. On to some less happy news. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. The dev team put out a statement on its website explaining that lead narrative designer Brian Mitsoda and creative director Kai Clooney are no longer part of the team at Hardsuit Labs. This was a joint decision made by the leadership of Hardsuit Labs and Paradox Interactive. They go on to write, quote, "We appreciate and value the contributions of Brian and Kai, which were instrumental in establishing the game's storyline and dark tone, and have helped to ensure that we are making a true successor to the iconic Bloodlines. We wish them both the best in their future endeavors." With that, we are excited to announce that Alexander Mandryka has come aboard as creative consultant, filling the creative director role for Bloodlines 2, and will help us in the final stages of development. Alexander has been in the industry for more than 20 years and has worked on iconic franchises such as Assassin's Creed, Warhammer 40k, Far Cry, and more. Now, with the game set to release in 2021, some fans are concerned over the abrupt firing of some very important people on the team. And it's also allegedly been clarified that their firing had nothing to do with any form of misconduct, which leads people to wonder even more, why were they fired? Brian Mitsoda designed and wrote the story for the first Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines game, and fans who were dubious of this sequel were reassured by having Mitsoda on the team. And the situation becomes even worse when we hear from Brian Mitsoda himself. In an email statement to Rock Paper Shotgun, Mitsoda stated, quote, "After almost 5 years involvement with the studio, I was suddenly terminated on July 16th. That this came as a shock to me is underselling it. I've worked on Bloodlines 2 for almost 5 years. The story and main cast was initially conceived in my living room. I helped develop the pitch for Hardsuit Labs and helped pitch the project to Paradox in Las Vegas. I've been in charge of the narrative since the beginning, working long days and sometimes weekends to deliver a successor to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I've never been led to believe that I hadn't succeeded. I was not part of the conversations that led to the decision to delay production, and to my knowledge, there were no delays caused by the Bloodlines 2 narrative development. I am confident and proud of the work that I and my team put forward." So with this resulting in even more questions as to why these two were fired, some fans are becoming concerned and speculating that the reason may be they're bringing in people that are just gonna make a more marketable game, a more profitable game, a safer game, a game that may stray from the heart of the franchise in order to be a product that will sell. But until we hear more from an official source, that'll have to be left to speculation. Onto some Diablo news. David Brevik, one of the fathers of Diablo, frequently accompanies his wife on her stream, and recently answered a question about a potential Diablo 2 remaster. This is what he had to say.
David, how do you feel about Blizzard doing Diablo 2 remaster? Do you think they can do it? Well, of course they can do it.
They can do a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but they can do anything. So, I don't know. I feel like they, that it's very possible for them to do. Will it be the same game? Doubtful. Is it going to be, it's got all sorts of technical problems, like I've stated on the stream before. We, lost a bunch of the assets late in the process because we had a backup database. Our source control corrupted, and we lost everything. So they probably don't have a lot of the assets and stuff, which is going to be a problem.
Who needs assets? Come on.
They don't have any of the people that worked on the code or did anything there, any of the balancing, any of the quests, anything like that. They don't have any expertise. So good luck trying to figure out what the hell we did. Nobody's ever contacted me about it.
Now, most of this is not particularly new information. The Diablo 2 devs have repeatedly expressed the great difficulty there would be in remastering Diablo 2. But for myself personally, I think the greatest disappointment here is that no one has reached out to him, or presumably Max and Eric Schaefer, to ask for their input on how to remaster Diablo 2. Now, at this point, a Diablo 2 remaster is only rumored. There are no confirmations by Blizzard, nothing official that it's actually happening, but given the amount of circumstantial evidence and the direction that all the signs have been pointing over the years, it seems natural that Blizzard has at least been considering remastering Diablo 2, looking into the possibility, seeing what it would take. And the fact that David Brevik can just come out and say that he's not been contacted means he hasn't. You'd think that if they wouldn't want to outright hire the original Diablo devs, that they would at least bring them on as consultants, put them under NDA, and get their input on how best to remaster this product that they made, this game, this franchise. But in the meantime, as we wait for a potential Diablo 2 remaster, I do want to draw your attention to a video that I released yesterday about a Grim Dawn mod that remakes Diablo 2 within Grim Dawn. I absolutely love this mod. You can check out that video for the full details. On to some Diablo 3 news. For a while this season, people have noticed that sometimes when you get a leaderboard clear, it's not actually recorded. This was seen on the European server. People would beat their record on the leaderboard, but not see it actually added to the leaderboard. And people couldn't quite figure out what was causing this. Sometimes you would make it on leaderboards and sometimes you wouldn't. And some very resourceful players managed to deduce that depending on what server you would connect to, because whenever you log in to play Diablo, you end up connecting to some Blizzard server, and by using some simple resources, you can see what IP address you're connected to. And some of these IP addresses, some of these servers were busted and not reporting Greater Rift clears, not reporting leaderboard clears. So one industrious player made a program that actually checks and verifies whether you are playing on a bad server. So you would load into the game, and then this little program will tell you, oh, you've connected to a server that is not going to report your leaderboard clear, so the players can know, all right, well, I'm not going to bother. Let me exit and re-enter and try to connect to a server that will actually work. I really love when the community comes together like this. When Diablo 3 first released, there was all manner of websites and utilities that people would use, all kinds of fan creations. We still have some of those. The D3 Planner, for instance, is a wonderful one. Diablo Fans has its own built-in stuff. But it's been a long time since we've seen some kind of new community resource emerge. And it's kind of questionable whether people are allowed to run such a program. I think technically by Blizzard's terms of service, you're not allowed to run such a third-party application, even though it's not doing anything nefarious. It's really just pulling up information that you could otherwise do yourself if you took extra steps. But regardless, it shouldn't be needed anymore, because following this, Blizzard actually managed to, allegedly, and hopefully, fix the issue with the servers. Last we heard, the issue should be resolved. And the other good news for Diablo 3 this week is that we got a Baldur ban wave. Players are always asking for more frequent ban waves in Diablo 3, and we've been getting a couple of them now. In other Diablo news, there's a new job posting for UX designer for Diablo Immortal. UX stands for user experience. Designing user interfaces falls under the umbrella of UX, but UX involves a lot more than just that. And it should be specified here that just because they're putting up a job posting for such a thing does not mean that the game is nowhere close to being released. If they are creating a game which they intend to continue to pump out content for over time, which that does seem to be the model for Diablo Immortal, then they're always going to need positions like this. So I wouldn't take this as a sign of anything bad or the game being delayed or anything like that. And lastly, in happy Diablo news, I wanted to direct your attention to the latest episode of Diablos 2 by Carbot Animations. And that's going to wrap up this week's video, but do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discuss the new Diablo 4 job posting for someone to help with the monetization of the game. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.